started so that you guys would have something to refer back to if you need to, if you have team members that aren't able to make it today and they want to attend. So going to just jump right in and start sharing my, wait a second, which screen am I sharing? I don't know that I shared the wrong screen. I took my computer off of its docking station and now like all my screens aren't in this right order. So excuse me for, there we go. Okay, so some of you are returning. Welcome back. Some of you are brand new. Welcome. And we will do introductions, which is my next slide. So we're going to start off with welcome and introductions. We're going to give you a brief establishment of abbreviations and who's who. Talk about the timeline for this, the training schedule and the application process. A bit of Charter Schools 101. Talk about the application packet and the rubric, the frameworks, your facilities, your potential facilities, and the research that you'll be working on. So the application is a rigorous process because the commissioners want to have, oh, and feel free to interrupt me at any time to ask a question. You can just break in or raise a digital hand. This training is for you, and so please don't hesitate. It is a very rigorous process. The authorizer wants high quality applicant teams that are going to be able to hit the ground running. It's a big lift proposing to start a public school in the state of New Mexico. I'm sure it's difficult in any state. So the process is rigorous. I don't have pictures of all of my team, but Dr. Bridget Russell, who will be joining us shortly, is the director of the Charter Schools Division. My name is Missy Brown. I'm the deputy director. Ted Farnath is the technical assistance and training lead. And then I've got Emily Perez, who is the technical assistance and training specialist, I think. So we've got a robust team also on with us today. We have Lucy Valenzuela, who is the charter schools supervisor and leads the authorizing team, which does the site visits in schools. So we're going to turn it over to you all. I do have slides for each of your applicant schools, so I'm going to have to see if people are, oh, here's Dr. Russell. So let me just let her in and I'm going to stop sharing so that she can say hello. Good morning, Bridget. So we're just doing introductions now if you'd like to say something.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bridget Russell. I'm the Charter Schools Division Director.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to my slides. Oops. Now I've lost my people. There you are. All right. So is Andriana, my Lord Thomas, with us? No. And I know that Radi Abul Hassan is not with us yet. Is Vicky Chavez with us? All right, so what we'll do is I'll just go through so you all know who your other teammates are here and through this process. So these trainings are not required. But if you do get approved to enter into your implementation year, those trainings are required to attend. So, and going in alphabetical order, we have an applicant, Andriana Mylord Thomas, who wants to open up a school for students grades 5 to 12 in Albuquerque with a total proposed enrollment of 150, called Albuquerque Prep. Really looking to empower students through a dynamic blend of learning by doing and project-based exploration. We have Radi Abul Hassan and Ahmed Hassan, also in Albuquerque, for grades 9 to 12, about 400 kids, and they want to empower Albuquerque's diverse high school students through a rigorous, inclusive educational experience that emphasizes project-based learning in sciences and humanities. Then we have Vicky Chavez, et cetera, in Deming, who want to open up a K to 8 with about 400 kids, and they're really looking at community leadership. Now, I believe I saw Murad Hijaz in the group. So would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Murad Jazi. Drinking to do
Hijaz,
the
thank you.
yes,
Go ahead.
to do high tech academy in Albuquerque. It's going to be 9 to 12, or maybe 6 to 12. That's what we're thinking about. Where is the process to start? And
Well, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because you can and should have on your application what your ultimate goal is, but you would, if you're approved, you would have a rollout grade schedule. And so you might say to us, whereas I ultimately want to have a K-12, I'm going to start at grade 6 to 12, and then I'll grow down. Or if it, it depends on how you want to write your application. But it is perfectly fine to say, we're going to do this, but I'm going to start here and build out. So go on.
we are in the process. We are in the research, more electrical, more in engineering, more STEAM, and precisely on the medical school, that precise in the UNM, that will work on the research for the kids. That's our emphasis, and that's what we're trying to do.
Great. Thank you. So next we have Catherine House, and I believe you're here in the room.
Hi, Catherine House wasn't able to attend, so Laura Jepson, hi.
Oh, hi, Laura.
How are you?
Good.
We are proposing High Desert. It's a virtual learning school for grades 4th through 8th grade. We're starting there and hope to expand to high school, potentially K through 8, supporting with evidence-based practices in literacy and math to support STEM and just job focus for students.
Thank you. All right. So again, forgive me if I'm saying it incorrectly. Ishan Mankad?
Yeah, that's pretty good. My name's Ishan, and just a little background about me. I used to teach for Basis Charter Schools up in Phoenix, and they are a very advanced charter network. So I have some experience there, and then another charter network called Academy of Math and Sciences. And so I really enjoyed what they were doing. They almost had their charter schools to a level of almost like a private school in terms of just the advanced curriculum that they were teaching and how well their students were doing. And so that inspired me to kind of start my own, or at least apply to start my own charter school. We are in Las Cruces, New Mexico. We want to start K through 5, pre-K through 5, and then roll out after that. But right now we're just looking to keep it to about 180 to 200 students. My background is in business, so I'm trying to keep it as lean as possible and kind of let it organically grow from there. And so, I know what math modalities those charters were using, still shoring up the ELA part of it, and looking for what's best for in terms of the ELA, what's evidence-based, and then a strong technology component as well. So trying to get a lot of these, some of these systems are like feedback oriented, And so trying to use that to bring kids up to grade level, if not accelerate them. So that's the goal for us.
Thank you.
Use my cat, sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Missy,
Um,
I just wanted to make sure you know you're not sharing your screen.
oh, for crying out loud. Thank you.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop.
I thought you stopped sharing so that we could see
Well,
like
yeah,
the
we can
speakers.
see people, and I think that's more important than reading what I have on the slides. And you'll have the slides so you can refer back to them to like who was it, who else was in the group? I want to reach out to them, you know, and you'll have it. So next we have Rebecca Nahi. And I believe I saw you join.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, I'm on a transit. My name is Becca Naahe. I'm hoping to start a school in the Pueblo of Zuni. We're starting with 120 students. And the school itself has been in the works for the past 10 years under the late Hayes Lewis, who was a Zuni superintendent of Zuni. And under that kind of vision, this is the only group of people that speak this language in the entire world. It's a language isolate. And so there's kind of like the hopes and dreams of creating like a micro immersion school but it's actually really community driven. The entire cultural leaders and families are the ones driving it. I'm just there because I understand the admin side now. But it's great to be with all of you this morning. Thank you so much.
And Becca, I'd love to know how to pronounce the name of your proposed charter school.
It's called Ikafe Shirokana, and it's a Zuni word that means regrowth or to regrow something.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay. So do we have, I think I saw Lisa Marie Ortiz and Dr. Diane Kingson.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Yes, Dr. Sunny is with us today and Juliana Sanchez. And our school that we're proposing is New Mexico Space Medicine and Bioaerospace Institute. We are looking at starting at 150 students, but moving our way up as the years go and projected at 1,000. Our school is designed for that we're proposing is either for Albuquerque or Rio Rancho area. We apply to both districts. Also, too, it is very not just within our community that we're looking at, but we're looking at for the whole entire state of New Mexico to give those students various more in that educational growth of the biospace and space medicine industry with humanities, looking at our foundation here in New Mexico as Planet Mars. We're also looking at not only doing it within our community for the state of New Mexico, but as we are looking at for future, that it could also be for nationally and also globally, as we have a direct connection through the Space Academy and through NASA, through the Flight 26 Teacher Liaison Space Academy, Space Foundation.
Thank you. So I'm going to share screen briefly to tell you about, because I don't believe Numair Latif is here. If anybody from this team is here, please stop me now.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Would you like to introduce yourself? And I'll stop sharing this so we can see you.
Yeah, I'm a team member for the Res Academy. Numair Latif is the team leader. But I'm attending on his behalf. Res Academy is going to be, if it were to happen, it would be grade 9 through 12 with total enrollment starting being at 120. And yeah, high school and the focus is environmental field. So like environmental engineering, planning, architecture, sustainable design, and STEM education with hands-on learning. And was that it as far as things to mention?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Angela Feathers with Sundance Montessori School.
Hi, I'm Angela Feathers. We are proposing a Montessori school in Santa Fe. We are looking to have about 250 students, probably rolling out the adolescent community later, and including a pre-K program that won't be included in under the charter schools. So thank you.
Right, and Angela mentions is something I was going to tell you. So I have put on the slides whether you want to be a pre-K or starting at kindergarten if you're doing those grades. And of course, the pre-K would not be part of your contract with the state. I'm having technical difficulties now with my PowerPoint, but I know that we have Dr. Linda Coy next with Three Rivers Career Leadership Academy. Did I get booted out? No.
No, you're here.
Okay. I'm my entire screen is
I
just
can
going.
speak for Three Rivers.
Thank you.
I know Dr. Coy was on the line. I'm not quite sure. Looks like maybe she's having technical difficulties.
Well, that would be on par with what I'm doing. So
For the
Can you
day,
hear me now,
yes.
Bobby? Can you hear me now?
So, yes, we can.
Okay.
We can hear
Now,
you.
Bobby is the brains behind the whole thing. But anyway, my name's Dr. Linda Coy, former school superintendent in New Mexico and a longtime educator. We have Three Rivers Education Foundation in Farmington, New Mexico. And we've done a lot of different things with literacy and teacher development and so forth. And so what we're doing with this charter application is focusing on the youth build model. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that through the Department of Labor. We currently have a program that we are operating, but we learned a lot about a segment of the population that seems to be sort of failing at a great number, and it's with all the societal problems as well. And they're called opportunity youth. And that is 16 to 24-year-olds. Of course, we can only do through 21 through this process. But we have many, many years of experience in working with the schools, and both Bobby and myself. Bobby's now working back with Bloomfield Schools. I'm still with the foundation in Farmington. So we're really excited about the opportunity to do this. We'll just have many years of experience in public education and at the university level. And we feel like we can bring some unique perspective with this particular population. We also have a second component that we're looking at with this process, because one of the big things we've been involved with for years is teacher development through TQP and a lot of federal dollars over the years. So we want to look at it as an incubator for teacher development along with the youth build model. So that's and that's a construction project where it's basically workforce development, but at the same time helping young people get their alternative high school diploma and GEDs as needed. So that's kind of what our concept is. Bobby, you want to fill in?
I think you covered it pretty well. Really, that hands-on, industry-aligned learning is our focus, starting out with 200 students, 9 through 12, and expanding to 6 through 8 when we're successful.
Thank you. And then I see we have Adriana here. We did do a little bit of an intro about your school, but if you want to just say hello and
Yes,
so
thank
everybody knows who
you.
you are.
Yes, sorry about that. My name is Andriana. My Lord, I also go by Thomas. I just switched my last name, so it's pretty chaotic. The school that we are proposing is Albuquerque Prep. It will be located in Albuquerque. We're looking more of like the uptown area. It will be 5 through 12, so counting like middle school, going through high school, and it'll be more of a college prep career focused charter that has like this dynamic blend for middle school being inquiry based, a project-based learning style, and then for high school, having that more hands-on learning for our students to engage in CTE opportunities. Our target audience for this are minorities, typically students of color, Indigenous students, and Asian American students. Typically, they're left out, and also student athletes, and getting them to understand that you don't have to just be the person on the court, but there are so many different fields and different avenues. And I think that New Mexico has the potential to continue to grow as we see like Netflix coming here and so many different things happening for the state of New Mexico, that our kids need to be the future in the hands-on and have an opportunity to have say in these sorts of environments. And so really building out for that. And then our target goal is 150. We already have 100 students that are willing, and then our students wouldn't just come from Albuquerque, but the whole state of New Mexico as well.
Okay. So I'm not sure who is on the iPhone, if I've missed you or if you wanted to tell us who you are or.
Ms. Brown, that is actually, she's from our team. That's Miss Jarvis, Angela
Oh,
Jarvis.
okay.
Miss
Great.
Jarvis, would you like to share? And Dr. Sunny or Miss
I mean,
Juliana?
I know it can be hard to unmute a phone, but I just
Oh, all right. I
didn't
just
want to
did.
didn't want to leave anybody behind.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. So I'm part of the group with Ms. Ortiz, and we were teachers that were working together, and we saw some things that we could improve on, and that's why we decided to form a school with the ideas that we've always talked about. So I'm here representing what Ms. Ortiz is doing, and so, okay.
Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
and I want to say I am pleased to see that the teammates, the people who have teammates, this is a difficult process. If I don't have somebody's email address, I can't send them the invite, but you are always welcome to forward to your teammates any invitation we send you. You're also welcome to provide us with their email addresses and we'll do it. So, and then I wanted to let you all know that we also have Betty Seeley on. Betty has worked for us for a number of years in many capacities, but she's also a peer reviewer for the applications. So she's likes to listen in to hear what we're telling the applicant teams, because that helps her in her rating of your applications. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and let's talk a little bit about the abbreviations and the who's. So the Public Education Commission, referred to as the PEC, consists of 10 commissioners. Right now, currently, there are 9 commissioners. One commissioner had to move out of his district, and that a new commissioner has not been appointed by the governor. They are the authorizer. They are the entity at the state that you would apply to, as opposed to if you were applying to APS district school and applying through their process or through the district in which you're located. They come from all across the state, and they are a very engaged and robust committee, and they really care deeply about academic outcomes for students in our state. Then there's the Charter Schools Division, which we refer to us as the CSD. We serve all charter schools, but we serve the state authorized schools in a more rigorous capacity. We go to those schools and provide site visits and give annual reports on progress of the schools. And but we do support all of the charter schools in the state as well. And then there's the Public Education Department, referred to as the PED. They are the Public Education Department for the state of New Mexico, and they oversee all public schools. And of course, you are applying to run a public school in the state of New Mexico. So this is a slide going over kind of the roles that I did just talk about, but the PEC, they can approve charters, they revoke charters, they negotiate contracts, they develop policies and procedures. CSD staff make sure that those things are happening. And then the PED has all of the different bureaus, special education and assessment and accountability and much, much more. All right, so the training schedule, application process, and timeline. All of the trainings for the new application are presented on Monday mornings, starting typically at 9. They won't necessarily go the full amount of time. On February 23rd, we will be talking about budgeting, facilities, and the organizational framework. On March 16th, we're going to do a deeper dive into parts B and C of the application. And then on April 13th, that is not the right date. Sorry, I will have to fix that. June 1st is the application due date.
So, Miss, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, I know you just so now that we've submitted our initial application, we are to follow this set of meetings and guidelines to get us to the next official step, which is the application submission in June. Is that correct?
Right. So there's 3 limiters in opening up a charter school. The first one is submitting your notice of intent to open up a charter school by the second Tuesday of the month, both to the state and to the district in which you wanted to open. The next limiter is, which we will be discussing later in this training, is completing the facilities master plan activity, which is due to the Public Schools Facility Authority on April 1st. If you cannot get that done, you cannot submit an application. So that is the next big hurdle. And it's not, it's if you have a location in mind, that is excellent. It's not, the activity is not, I have to find the location. You have to find a location, and you have to go through the steps of what the facilities entails so that you can understand how difficult the facilities aspect of this is going to be. And so you're not, nobody's going to come and look at a building. Like, you don't have to sign it, but you're basically, it's like taking a driving test in a simulator. You're simulating and showing us that you understand and can do the facilities master plan if you get approved. But it's such a big thing that in statute, it is required to be done by April 1st during the application year in order to be able to submit an application. But again, unless you absolutely know this is the building I'm going to be in, it's really an exercise to ensure that you understand everything that is required. So,
So just to clarify, Ms. Brown, with what you just said, based on that information, and as long as we have an area where we can answer all that and come up with that plan, and if things change, if and when we do get approved, then we do have that adjustment if the facility does change. Is that correct?
So yeah, so like, for example, last year, no, 2 years ago, a school proposed to open up in Santa Fe, and they had a building. They knew exactly the building they were going to do. So they were able to do the facilities master plan thinking of that building that they have. Now, that particular school ran into problems because when they did finally get the public schools facility authority to come out and inspect the property, they got a very low score. And it's because there was standing water. There were electrical cords in water. There were broken windows. There was mouse feces. So, you know, the facilities the facilities are going to be the most difficult thing that you have to overcome. It just has traditionally been the most difficult thing that applicant schools have had to go over. One of the schools that was approved in this fiscal year down in Las Cruces still doesn't have a building, and that is very worrisome. A school that applied 2 years ago in Albuquerque finally got a building, but they had to ask to have a second implementation year in part because of the building. There were other reasons as well, but you know, it's not easy. So the facilities master plan activity is like a dry run of you know what the building is going to be, and it helps you orient you to the depth and breadth of things that you have to think about. And none of this is easy. So it really it's to help make, you know, get you prepared for eventually being approved. All right,
Thank
so
you.
I don't
yes.
want to get too ahead of your presentation because it sounds like you're already going to discuss some of this later. But sounds like we don't necessarily have to have like some kind of contract or LOI with the facilities.
You do not. You do
And
not.
pay
Yeah.
to. Okay.
It just like, yeah, if you do, great. You already know what building you're going to be looking at, and you can do your facilities master plan activity based on that. And then if you get approved, then you know you've got the work of your facilities master plan started. But most of you probably don't have any buildings, so you're doing, you know, you have to look at the commercial real estate that's available, and then based on that, pick one of them and then do this as if that was going to be your facility. But you're not getting a lease, you're not getting an MO, you're not getting any kind of understanding. It's just, you know, it's just an experiment. So this is a better slide because the dates on this are accurate. So you all submitted your NOIs, and now this is our first training, and the facilities master plan is due April 1 to the Public Schools Facility Authority. June 1 is when the application is due, no later than 5 p.m. And then June 2nd, the technical review period and the capacity the analysis by the independent peer reviewers, all the way through to the capacity interviews happen June 2nd to June 24th. Now, you guys aren't having to do something every day of June 2nd to June 24th, but the peer reviewers are, and then we're scheduling with each team that submits an application for the capacity interview. All right, now for the PEC things, if you're applying with the state, we will have public community input hearings. So everybody who submits an application and makes it through the peer review process and still is game, we will come to your community where you're located and hold a community input hearing. This is necessary for you and your team to be there as well. So block off your calendars now that you're not going anywhere the week of July 6th, excuse me. By July 20th, the PEC will have any questions or concerns sent in a letter to the applicants. I was confused by the application, and we're working on fixing the application, but then it says that by July 27th, we'll have PEC letters to the applicants. So I think that means that if they have questions or concerns, they're going to get those out earlier, and then they'll just get acknowledgement letters to you by the 27th that they have your application and everything's going as planned. By August 3rd, the CSD, the Charter Schools Division, will present their analysis of the application to both the Public Education Commission and the applicant teams. And then the Public Education Commission will make their decision on whether or not to start your application into the implementation year process at their August 21st meeting. So again, dates to make sure you have on your calendar. So the PEC will make that final decision to deny, approve, or they can approve with conditions your application. They do read all of the peer review evaluations of all of the applications. They do read the applications as well. So approving with conditions, they have been giving conditions to every applicant school in the last 2 years. You know, a basic condition would be that you will complete the implementation year checklists, things like that. Other types of conditions have been around facilities. You know, 1 year an applicant school they had proposed that they would be serving the west side of Albuquerque in a very specific region, and that became a condition of the implementation year. They did have to amend that because they just weren't able to find a viable facility to basically, you know, as close to the Rio Grande as possible. And they did do that. So, you know, there's a variety of different types of conditions that the commissioners might put on an applicant team entering into their implementation year, but then your team will have time to be completing that. Like obviously, if you have the condition of completing the implementation year checklist, that's going to take you through into the spring of 2027. If you have one on facilities, that will be before, you know, before June, you would have to have a facility, those types of things. All right, so they base their decision on the application that you write, the independent peer review analysis, the capacity interview analysis, the community input hearing, and then any clarifying information and statements provided by the announced deadlines and your applicant statements to the PEC. So again, we will be going over more specifics about the community input hearings later on. All right. We've only been going for about a half hour, so I'm going to keep going, and we will take a break though. But you're all adults and you can manage yourselves at your computers. So all right. So first and foremost, and what I have in my email tagline is that charter schools are public schools. So they are not private schools. We do not appreciate schools that give, I personally don't appreciate schools that give the impression that they're a private school when they're a charter school. You want to make sure you're as transparent as possible and let people know that you're a public school. So you will have your charter, which is your contract that is negotiated between you and your authorizer, and Many of you have indicated that you are the intended head administrator at your schools. Be aware that the contract is signed with the board. And so by the time, if you do get approved and into your implementation year, you will enter into contract negotiations in the spring of 2027, and that requires board members. And you have to have board members because they are the ones that sign the contract, not the head administrator. That contract then allows you to open a school and receive public funds. Students attend charter schools by choice. I heard one of you guys say you already had a number of students or families who were interested. That is really key. You have to have and be able to show that your community wants you and needs you and is going to choose. Parents tend to not want to move their kids out of a school. So enrollment is the next, big hill to climb for people to have a successful launch. Charter schools are subject to greater accountability than traditional public schools. You have annual site visits, you have a performance framework with 3 sections: academic, organizational, and financial. And you are rated on how well you are doing in those areas every year of your contract term if you're state authorized. So again, public schools, you're a public school. You have to meet the same academic standards as traditional public schools. You are held to a higher accountability than traditional public schools. Teachers are subject to the same certification requirements. You do have more flexibility than traditional schools. You would be hiring your own staff instead of having staff assigned to you. So that's one of the major points of autonomy and flexibility. You enroll students through an unbiased lottery system, and then they must be reauthorized at least every 5 years, if not sooner. You can get less than a 5-year contract, and charter contracts can be revoked if it is determined that the school is not meeting the needs of the students.
So, Ms. Brown,
Yes.
in Arizona, I know I was able to be hired as a math and science teacher because I had a degree in biology. So my understanding is in New Mexico, you have to have a teaching certificate, or can you? Okay.
And your head administrator has to have an administrator's license, or if you have a level 3 licensure and you are working towards your administrator license. I know I was a little bit worried when I heard you had experience in Arizona. Arizona is extremely different. Every other state in the union is very, very different from New Mexico. New Mexico does not allow charter management organizations. We do not allow an entity from out of state to be managing or running or helping a charter in our state. So it's very different from how Arizona runs. So, innovative teaching methods and effective practices are all some of the cornerstones of the Charter Schools Act. There's a whole laundry list of the things that the Charter School Act really is asking for, addressing the needs of all students, including those determined to be at risk, having new professional opportunities for teachers, improving student academic achievement is really, really, really important. Encouraging parental and community involvement. So there's a lot of things, and what we're looking for, what the charter authorizers look for, they want thorough, well-developed applications from capable teams. This is really hard to do as an individual. If you are successful, you do enter into an implementation year. I've told you, you have to complete the application, the implementation year checklists. There are due dates throughout the year. Then the authorizer would vote in June of 2027 to whether or not you are going to commence operations. So hopefully you guys have already been researching the website and you've seen the PEC's website on the PED page, and all the templates that are there. So please, I know some of you are coming at this for a second or even third time. Have a clear understanding of you and your team's roles. Understand what you are promising to deliver. Applicants in the past have specifically listed other entities that they, were going to have student opportunities with. And then they kind of backpedaled from that during the implementation year. And the commission doesn't take that lightly. They, if you say you're going to be working with CNM or UNM or Sandia, you'd better have that agreement really fleshed out before you put in your application and say that. If you say we're going to be working with entities like, that gives you a little bit more wiggle room, but just make sure that you're really, what you say you're going to do in the application, they are going to hold you to if they approve you. You have to have a commitment to ensure that your proposed school will report accurately and regularly on its activities, right? You don't just get the keys to the candy store and told to have fun for 5 years. You have multiple reports due throughout the year to different bureaus within the public education department. Charter Schools Division is not the only division that comes out and does site visits at schools. So there's lots of monitoring activity and lots of reporting throughout the year. So you will be expected to show your team's capacity to meet each element of the Charter Schools Act. So thinking about how your proposed school will improve student achievement, engage in a robust and meaningful way with your community, be accountable for maintaining educational standards, maintain accountability for all fiscal requirements, be equitable, culturally and linguistically responsive, and ensure high-quality teachers come to work for you. So, that's one of the things that every year you talk about how these amazing teachers that are kind of decide to come and work for you in a state and a nation that has a shortage of teachers. Governance is very important. A lot of people don't understand what the role of a governance board is. It is not a tick box. They have a very vital role in the longevity and success of a charter school. Having a robust plan for how you're going to always maintain a minimum of 5 board members. The minimum is not what the commissioners are looking for. So how you intend to, if you are the proposed school's head administrator, ensure that balance between the board and the head administrator and those two very distinct and important roles. Charter school board members have the fiduciary responsibility of representing all of the owners of the school, which the owners are the taxpayers of the state of New Mexico. So I've always seen the role of a board to be kind of an on-site mini authorizer. If they are setting expectations and reviewing data throughout the contract term and throughout the year, they should be the ones finding errors before the auditor does. They're the ones who should be asking questions of the head administrator, pushing the head administrator to make sure that outcomes are happening. Because, like the commission is going to do if when you're up for renewal, or if you're up to amend your contract, asking for something else, more students, different grade levels, or if you're up because you have a corrective action plan in place from the commission or another bureau in the public education department. So, and I've mentioned this, so you have the opportunity to either apply with the district in which you're going to be located or the state. And charter contracts typically last 5 years, but no more. So again, autonomy, when I first joined, I've been in the charter schools division since 2017. And, it struck me that when I think of autonomy, I think of the definition of autonomy, the right or condition of self-government, freedom from external control or influence, independence. That's not what autonomy means in running a public school. So in a charter school, you have some flexibility in exchange for more oversight. You have to establish a mission. You get to hire and fire staff, like I said. You have control of of your budget, and you can choose your curriculum. So that's basically what autonomy means at a charter school. So it's very important to be able to define, understand, and measure success. The success needs to be palatable or understandable or seen at a lot of different levels. You've got the individual and family level, you've got the legislative and governor level, you've got the public education department level, the educator level, the authorizer level, the community level, governance level, and the citizens of New Mexico. Like, a lot of people really do not understand that charter schools are public schools. They do not understand that the board runs the charter school. They hold the charter. In my time, I have witnessed 4 schools go through the pain of people coming up asking the public education commissioners, begging the public education commissioners to remove the board and save their school. There is no mechanism in law to remove a board. Nobody can remove a board except the board. So that is something very critical to keep in mind. So the Public Education Commission is really interested in a results-based accountability kind of model. How much are you going to do? How well are you going to do it? And who's better off? So keep that in mind. Opening a charter school is not easy. And this is an old estimate. I think this might even be pre-pandemic, the 350,000. I struggled to get people to actually give me a number. And I squeezed this out of somebody that they thought it would cost upwards of $350,000 during the implementation year. You don't get any money from the state until July 1 of 2027 if you're approved. There is a charter schools grant that will be available, and we will have the Public Charter Schools of New Mexico come and speak to us at one of our future sessions to talk about that process of applying for that. But there aren't 11 grants. There will be 1 to 2 typically in a year for a new applicant school. So it's a difficult and expensive undertaking. You have to be unique, right? So what are the specific methods that are different and innovative? So you have to be unique and different and innovative in a way that's based on reliable research and effective practices. So it's kind of a bit of an oxymoron in my opinion. Like you have to be unique in a way that somebody's already been and has collected data around. And so uniqueness, can be that, like we have multiple Montessori schools, but they're typically unique to their location. So there's unique in your location and there's unique in your pedagogy. So thinking about what sets you apart from the other options that are like your schools. We have schools that exist right now that do project-based, have project-based missions, and we have virtual schools. We have so we have a variety of schools. You need to be looking and thinking about that in as you're looking for where you're going to locate. Will it impact your uniqueness positively or negatively?
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, so when you talked about that 350,000 cost of opening, the assumption is that is in your implementation year, and for all intents and purposes, most of your application has been approved, right? And as long as you comply with all the stuff in the implementation year, you should be good to then go ahead and open, which makes that a safer bet to spend that 350 or even to get it from a bank or something like that, right?
Yeah, so yes, once you are approved to enter an implementation year, there's every expectation that you are going to be opened. We've only had one school applicant that I'm aware of that asked to have a second implementation year. They had received the charter school grant, and they had support from another entity in the state of New Mexico that helped. A lot of the cost is in it. It costs money to establish websites, and some people have been able to hire a recruiter to recruit students. It can take time. It's hard to do this and have a full-time job as well. And so those are some of the costs. You're not like getting furniture and buying curriculum. It's just your time. And then the implementation year, yes, once you get approved for that implementation year, that's when you would be able to apply for the CSP grant. The money, I believe, still operates in the way it did when we had this charter schools grant, that it's reimbursed expenses. So you're spending money and you're turning in your receipts and getting reimbursed through the grant. So that's what I mean. I don't think anybody here is doing a replication of a charter school model. So I just have this information in here for interest. So your application packet, the application that you're going to be working on and filling out has multiple target audiences. So you've got the Public Education Commission and you've got the peer reviewers. And so the thinking about the Public Education Commission, thinking about the peer reviewers. So the peer reviewers are going to be experts in the fields of running a charter school. We get people who have been business managers at charter schools in New Mexico. We get people who have been or are head administrators at charter schools, teachers at New Mexico charter schools. The authorizer, the Public Education Commission, many of them were teachers. I don't think anybody was a head administrator, but possibly. And some of them weren't. And so be mindful of acronyms. Make sure that you are spelling out an acronym and then putting the acronym in parentheses if you refer to it, later on. That type of thing is very helpful. As you can assume, the peer reviewers are going to have a lot more on hand, in-person experience that was more recent than the public education commissioners. So the application kit consists of okay, I'm going to have to fix this slide too. It has 4 parts, and it's got the part A is the instructions, part B is the executive summary. That's the area for you to put your kind of hopes and dreams, like what inspired you, why you're doing this heavy lift. Part C is the bulk of the application. It's the questions that all have specific tasks that you need to hit and respond to in those questions. Then the 4th part are the appendices that are required. So, and I've just explained that, and that's on this slide, so I'm not going to read that again. So the things, that's wrong, I'm going to fix that. Very disappointed in myself. There is a rubric for the application. You will be rated as either meeting the requirements, approaching the criteria, or not meeting the criteria. And the application lists those for each of the indicators. So to meet, all of the required elements are present. There's sufficient detail that has been put forth. There doesn't need to be any more development of it in the minds of the peer reviewers or the commissioners, that they're realistic and reasonable, that they're fully consistent with all of the sections. This is particularly important in the budgeting. You can't say that you're going to hire nothing but level 3 teachers and then budget for level 1 teachers. There has to be consistency. The budget has to make sense with what you've written in the application. It has to be fully consistent with the requirements of law, and it has to be coherent and easily understood. We don't ask for much. So
Christy, I have a
approaching,
question.
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I'm having difficulties with my internet, but the question I have is, has the state of New Mexico improved on the reimbursement processes? Because in the past, I was a former REC director, and it's very difficult at times. So I think some of the RECs have really struggled because of that. That's why we've gone with federal funding for years, because it took so long. Is that improved?
I would say from my experience, no.
That's what I figured, because and I think that's really important that everybody knows that 350,000 is probably not going to be enough. Because if you have to wait until you get reimbursed, sometimes it's like 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's improved for charter schools. That's a big consideration in the state of New Mexico.
It is a big consideration. And so even the grant, so the public charter schools grant that PCS&M is now overseeing. So CSD, the Public Education Department and this Charter Schools Division used to oversee it. And, they'd be awarded in like November, and consistently when it was at the Public Education Department, people weren't getting reimbursements until April of the following year. I do not know if Public Charter Schools of New Mexico is doing it more quickly. They absolutely should be. But I just haven't heard if there's any kind of delay with them, but that's a question to be asking when we have them attend one of the trainings. So
I have a question. Did the state, I have one more question, I'm sorry. Did the state of New Mexico get any charter school funds from the federal government?
No.
Directly?
No.
Not yet, okay.
So obviously to approach, you're almost there, right? There's some minor inconsistencies. There's a little bit of insufficient detail. There could be more fleshing out of something that you proposed. There might be questions. And then of course, does not meet would be, where'd my cursor go? That you didn't provide all of the elements. It's incoherent and confusing. It's unrealistic. You've copied somebody else's application. You've just copied statute and rule. So like if we ask you something around statute or rule and you just are belching out what statute and rule says, that's a does not meet. We want to know how statute and rule, how that particular statute and rule is going to be manifested at your school. What's it going to look like in your school environment? All right, so we've been going for about an hour, and I think we can take a break. It's 9:38. Let's start back at 9:45. Does that work? Okay.
Are we going to get a copy of this PowerPoint, or should we?
You're not copying it? Yes, of course. I'm going to send it to you when we're done. I have to fix some slides.
I've been taking screenshots.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I will be sending it to you. So
Awesome.
maybe dump your screenshots, because if there was a slide that I said I had an error on, I don't want you to be using that information. So.
Yeah, also if that's like another copy, also like they have the detailed paperwork on that slides. Like they have the
with
more
the
papers.
notes section?
No, so we can read it more depthly in each item, in order to like, because you put like the PowerPoints is like the main things. Would love to read more detailed on those. Are those available on the website, or just like we're gonna have this with you, or what's the deal on that? So to precisely in each item that you just said, or each item just put it on PowerPoint, it's just like a main thing, but to go in details on each one of the items, would love to see some kind of paperwork if that's possible, if you have it, and if you don't, if you can tell me where to go to find more reading on that.
So I think when we get to the research part, you'll maybe see the links that need to, but yeah,
Perfect.
You can, once I send you what I'm going to send you, if you're like, what is this? And I want something more, just reach out and we'll work towards it. So.
Well, Missy, also the recording's going to be available.
Yep. So speaking of that, I'm going to pause the recording when we take a break because so now we're going to talk about the different frameworks that we have. So the frameworks are required in statute. The framework is established in order to provide the schools with explicit instructions on what the expectations are. So your head administrator, your board should be intimately familiar with the frameworks. Your board meetings should be really structured around reporting out on the progress of the frameworks. The questions from the board members should focus around the frameworks. That is what you are chartered to be providing. So the frameworks, I really don't enjoy talking to board members who really don't understand anything about a framework and have never heard about a framework. It is your charter. It is your contract. It's embedded in there. So it is your primary tool for your monitoring and accountability. It provides transparency through between your authorizer and the charters. So I know that there's probably some districts that don't have much of a performance framework with their schools, which I personally would never want to enter into an agreement without having that clear understanding of what is expected from me, what I'm expected to deliver. So it helps us to understand where you are strong and where you need support. It should help your continuous improvement efforts. That is an expectation that you are going to be focused on continuous improvement. It helps to identify and celebrate promising practices and programs. That part of the charter school law, unfortunately, isn't really fully activated, where what we learn and what we see at charter schools gets kind of fed back to the traditional public schools. So they, that hasn't really been working. But it helps to provide a positive narrative about your school and why your school should exist. So the objectives are, we're looking at student academic performance and their academic growth. So there's proficiency, which means if a student is proficient, so that would be, I'm an 8th grader and I am doing 8th grade work. That means I'm proficient. If I am an 8th grader doing 6th grader work, we're really looking at how much the school is able to grow me. So if I'm an 8th grader by age and I'm doing 6th grade level work and you grow me a year's worth, now I'm a 9th grader doing 7th grade work. And so that's not great. You need to be growing those kids till they're proficient. And so we look at those things. We look at the achievement gaps in both proficiency and growth between the different student groups. So we look at your students as a whole, and we look at them by their demographic. So are they Hispanic students? Are they Native students? Are they Asian students? Do they have a learning difference? Do they have high mobility? Those types of categories. Are they special ed? We look at recurrent enrollment from year to year. We look at the financial performance and sustainability of the school. We look at the governing body performance, including compliance with laws, rules, in terms of the charter contract. This is reporting out board member changes, reporting out bylaws changes. There's a lot of different things that you have to notify your authorizer about. and is the governing board providing that support and providing that information? And then if your charter school is a high school, post-secondary readiness and graduation rate. And I should say that really those two things only kick in if you are serving 12th graders. So if you're going to be a high school, but you're going to roll your grades out, those might be things that wouldn't come into count in your first or second year if you're not yet having 12th graders. We're looking for rigorous measures. This is what contract negotiations is about. The commission will negotiate with you and your board team on what the performance targets that are going to be set. This is typically around mission goal, but also if you are hoping to authorize with the state, there are different options now for the academic performance framework, and those additional options require rigorous measures, and those need to be negotiated. We do look again at the school as a whole, and you can look at on our website, the schools that are currently existing all have annual reports in which we're saying, this is how this school has done in ELA, math, and science compared to the district in which they're located, compared to the state overall. And then we do that looking at the different subgroups of students. So here's the academic framework that I was talking about. It embeds choice for each school. So the first option is just to use the state accountability system. All of the options, you still have to take the statewide assessment. None of these options will alleviate a requirement for you to do the statewide assessment that is in federal law. But the difference is that if you choose option one, we're looking at the statewide assessment for your school. If you do option two, we're looking at the statewide assessment for your school, and then an interim assessment that you have chosen, such as NWEA or IMASA. And then if you choose, none of you will be able to choose option three. Option three is only for schools that currently exist. So you would have to exist, and then like for your next charter term, say that you wanted to do option three. And option three is very complicated because you have to replace every section of the statewide assessment with an alternative approved assessment. So again, your students are still taking the statewide assessment, but in option three's case, you are not looking at, the commissioners are not looking at this, what you got in option one and the statewide assessment. They're only looking at the tests that you're doing with your students. Now, if you are proposing to authorize with the state and you are going to be a 9 to 12, so you're only going to serve high school students, you have to choose option two, because high school students are only assessed at 11th grade, and the commission is not willing to wait to see if the 11th grade is doing well. So you would have to do option two if you're doing a high school, but otherwise you can choose option one, which I think is the easiest one for a new school. You don't have students yet, you don't know how they're going to perform. So if you're high school only, then you do have to choose option two. So The authorizers consider increases in student academic achievement for all groups of students as one of the most important factors in determining whether to revoke a charter school. Also part of the academic framework are the mission goals. So you have to identify two potential goals in your application. You do not have to use this template, but there is a reporting template. So for all of the academic options, there are reporting templates that you have to use. For the option 2, there's reporting templates. For option 3, there's reporting templates. And for the mission goal, there is a reporting template. I think that for the application, you need to come up with 2 mission goals. For contract negotiations, if you're approved, you should really focus on 1 goal. It's a lot of work. It's something you need to remember. You know, you don't just negotiate it. You have to actually then do it and report out on it. But it does have to cover at least one of the goals has to cover every student at the school. So we have a school out in Gallup that's kindergarten through grade 12. And they have 1 goal for all of those students, but it's measured in different ways for the different grade levels. And so that's, you know, one way to think about it. You can write 1 goal, but it's measured in different ways for different grade levels of students. The goals that you're going to propose in your application are not necessarily the goals that you will be negotiating in your contract. The authorizer, the state authorizer, will not negotiate an academic goal that repeats what we're getting in the statewide assessment. So no ALA math goals. If you're particularly a science school, we might be able to do something there. I haven't seen anybody try it yet, but they just are not. This really should be around your mission. And so if your mission isn't very measurable, that's going to be difficult. And if your mission is on improving academic outcomes, you know, you have to think of a different way outside of showing us the types of academic data that they will get through the statewide assessment. All right, the organizational framework has these 3 indicators, 1 split into 3. We're looking at you maintaining your board membership, not dropping below the mandatory 5, that your board members have completed all of their training. Board members have to take, and listen to me now, new board members have to complete 10 hours of training. They are specific hours, they are specific courses that are only offered through the Charter Schools Division. They are not offered through Public Charter Schools of New Mexico. Continuing board members in their 2nd year will need to complete 5 hours. Again, they are specific categories of hours, not just whatever interests you. They're specific categories. The Charter Schools Division will be communicating with your board regularly, quarterly, to be reminding them of where they are. Have they completed all of their training? I have yet to see anybody write this into their bylaws, an expectation that board members are going to complete training within a particular amount of time, so that the school doesn't have any findings on their performance framework. Maybe you guys will be the first. Meeting transparency and documentation. So that's, are your meetings transparent and do you document? Then there's the non-discriminatory enrollment processes, your lottery and enrollment should be separate. Please do not use, when you are talking about lottery, please do not use the word enrollment. And when you're talking about enrollment, you can refer to lottery, but they are very separate things. Lottery needs to be open to anybody and no limiters in there to make anybody feel like they are going to be discriminated against. Once they have submitted lottery form and they have been chosen to go to your school, then you can give them enrollment paperwork. Then you can say, do you have special needs? Do you have, what do you have? Where do you live? What are your demographics? But not until you have accepted them through the lottery process. And then there's annual compliance requirements that can vary from year to year depending on the legislature. So finally, we have the financial framework. There are 4 performance indicators. This is ensuring the financial health of your school. I have known one charter school in my time turn in their contract, their charter, because they were not going to have a positive cash flow at the end of the fiscal year. They were going to be in the red, so they turned in their charter. So the financial framework includes a report on days cash on hand, the annual financial audit, financial reporting and compliance, fiscal oversight, and enrollment variance. So fiscal oversight 4D is a tricky little indicator. It's got 7 different parts to it, and I think it's complicated and difficult. So annual performance reviews. So throughout the year, the school is submitting reports and documents to their authorizer, to other bed bureaus. The Charter Schools Division will come out and do annual site visits. For new schools, we also have, so if you do get approved in August to enter into your implementation year, the first site visit you will have will be 2 weeks prior to opening. So we're talking summer of 27. And then in the 4th year of your contract, you will have a renewal application that's due, and you will have a renewal site visit that happens in October. So the CSD evaluates the schools against the PEC's performance framework annually, and then gives you an annual report on how we see your progress. Why is this here? This is not my slide. Okay, sorry about that. So think about, what is your founding team hoping to achieve? What specific outcomes do you anticipate? What is the most important problem you are looking to solve? What does achievement of this goal look like? How will you know when you've reached this goal? How will you know which actions are having a positive impact? And this, I think, is very important to think about. Many of you are educators, and you're used to just like trying to throw anything against the wall and see what works. You have to really be thinking about, because your resources are limited, you have to ask your board to help you as the head administrator really be focused on tracking what you're trying to see if it's working. Because if you're just throwing anything up against the wall, you don't know what's working. And you have to show adult actions and what you're doing to try to improve changes. So if there's a resource attached to it, and by a resource, I mean time, people, or money, or any of those three things, the board should be asking for reports tracking. There should be an expectation. So for example, if the head administrator is thinking maybe instituting um, tutoring for students, that are at a certain threshold, and is telling the board, I'm going to I want to start a tutoring program for this group of kids to try to improve academic outcomes. The questions from the board should be, how much is it going to cost? When do you anticipate seeing an outcome? And then, if it's approved, there should be an established time that the head administrator is going to report on the progress, so you can see if it's worth the resources or not. Those conversations are going to have different timelines that you have to decide. That's where you have autonomy. And so being mindful about that, how you're making that impact. Because where is the money coming from? I've never had anybody come to me and say, Missy, we have got enough money to run our program. Thank you so much. Just I've never heard it. So you are going to have limited resources. You're going to have to think about how you allocate those resources. And if you do not understand what you're trying to achieve in the allocation of those resources, and that you're measuring that with data that can be provided to your authorizer to show why you should be allowed to continue, you're going to struggle. So think about how you will express all the wonderful things you plan to achieve in your proposed schools, and how that will be comprehensible to your future authorizer, your community, your future staff, and your future governing board. It cannot just be a lovely idea. You have to think about how you are going to be able to quantify it and show the data that means that your school should continue. All right, let's talk facilities. So a quick history of facilities for public charter schools in the state of New Mexico. 1993, when the Charter Schools Act was first put forward, there was no clause or anything about facilities. Then in 1999, the act was reauthorized. We changed, structural stuff at the public education department, but facilities were still not addressed. Then in 2003, they created the Public Education Commissioner, but it was not designed to help charter schools with any facilities questions. Again, in 2003, the Public School Facilities Authority was created. It's kind of like the PEC and the CSD, the PSCOC, the Public School Outlay Council. The PSFA is the entity that does their work. The PSCOC is legislators. The PSFA are the people that are doing the work. Then in 2005, the Public Schools Capital Outlay Act was amended to authorize the PSCOC to use Public School Capital Outlay Fund to create a lease assistance awards program. At the same time, Section 228B 4.2 of statute was enacted. commonly referred to as the Public Building Deadline. 2007, we had the Lease Purchase Act. We also had the Public School Building Act to authorize per student distribution. And then 2009, Public School Capital Improvements Act was amended. 2015, the Public Building Extension and Removal of Cap on the amount that could be used. And then fiscal year 19, lease assistance will cover approximately 66.2% of charter school lease costs. So one of the things the act does say is that the state equalization guarantee, or the SEG, which is what you would get starting July 1, 2027, if you're approved, is that it is not enough to cover all of the costs for running a public charter school. So,
sorry,
yes.
is that lease and assistance only for the first year, or is that an indefinite sort of lease
No,
assistance?
so no, it's a yearly allocation.
So it must
It
be
depends on,
reapplied and renewed every year. Is that correct?
I don't, do you have to reapply? I don't think you're reapplying, but your initial kind of entry into the system, the PSFA does not come and look at your school every year. They will look at your school before you opened, and then you'll be on a cycle. So I'm not sure if it's a 3-year cycle or a 5-year cycle, but your building will get a score, the New Mexico Condition Index. And based on the New Mexico Condition Index, based on your square footage, based on the education areas within that square footage, you get a lease reimbursement.
Missy, can I interject here a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so they do have to apply every year for it. You have
Thank
to
you,
fill
Betty.
out, a form every year. And your reimbursement is based on the number of students that you have in the previous year, like your SEG. And
Right.
so it's going to vary from year to year as far as how much money you're going to get for that same building. And it will only cover a very small portion of administrative space, and it covers classroom space. It does not cover hallways. It does not cover bathrooms. It only covers classrooms. So a lot of schools get very creative with what is considered a classroom, so that they can maximize what what they can get for their lease assistance, and everything else that's not covered has to come out of your SEG.
Thank you, Betty.
You're welcome.
So it's gonna be hard to find a facility. In theory, in theory, if the district in which you're going to be located has any buildings that they're not using, they're supposed to be allowing you to lease those from them. That's going to depend on the district. Some are better than others at being cooperative. They usually don't want to coordinate. A lot of people argue that a charter school is taking funds away from a public school, which is why it's really important to remember to say that you're a public charter school and they're a traditional public school. And in our state, we fund the children. And if the children feel like they're gonna have and their families feel like they're gonna have a better opportunity at a charter school, that's, then the traditional public school should have done a better job. but that is the narrative that gets thrown around a lot. So even if district buildings are available, the reason they're not being used is probably because their NMCI score is too low. And you can't, you're just not going to be approved if you're in a building that doesn't have an appropriate New Mexico condition index. Also, there's no database that's been created that includes a list of all unused public buildings. So there's a standards and systems-based program through the PSCOC. Most of the time, charter schools will not be a priority in the weighted NMCI rating system. And there's a lease assistance program through PSCOC. It's really the only source for most charter schools to fund a facility. So, and it's a discretionary program. It changes often. So, so as I talked about the PSFA facilities master plan activity, and I call it the facilities master plan activity because the facilities master plan is the name of the thing that you would have to do once you are approved. And that does also have its own requirements and updates and stuff. So you must be able to access the PSFA website through Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. And whereas I was always saying, you know, in our application, it says that they have to be turned into PSFA within 45 days prior to the new charter application, which is always puts it like around April 17th. But the PSFA said, no, we want them by April 1st. So that's what I'm passing along to you, that they want it by April 1st. So again, you're not asking PSFA to come out and look at any buildings. They are an exceedingly small staff. They just don't have the manpower to go look at potential properties for you. So this is some real data from real charter schools that have recently gone through this process. So all these schools, I think Raices and Solari, they've already gone through their first renewal process. So they're, and so is ACES Technical and Explore. But this is real data from what their lease amount was, what their student membership was. So Thrive Community College, they were paying $193,000 plus for their lease. They had 111 students in the year that I took this data. They were getting the membership rate, MEM stands for membership rate, at this particular year was $815, which you can see that was $90,532. So the difference is $102,000. So they only got $90,000 lease reimbursement. They had an extra $102,789 that they had to cover through their SEG.
And these are obviously per year, now that I'm looking at the numbers, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I hope this is ample evidence that you're not going to get enough money from the SEG to cover all of your expenses. All right, this will require completing research. So this is why having a team is really valuable. You can divide and conquer, and then also, you know, reading application sections to make sure that they are consistent, that they're coherent, that they make sense. So You need to review New Mexico state statutes and regulations, the policies on the PED's various laundry list of divisions that we have here in bureaus. There's loads of guidance and technical manuals. Every year I suggest that if you consider that you're going to get that every single student you're going to get is going to be a high needs student of some type. They're going to have some needs of some type. And start there. Like behavior policies, that are designed for kids with learning differences, are they drastically different from the behavior policies that you have to have for your more traditional students? I'd say start with the special ed, and then if you feel like you have to have something different in a policy, you can create a different policy for your more standard level students. But you're going to have to accept the students that apply. We've got a lot of special needs students. We've got a lot of low income students. We have a lot of students who English is not their first language. So you have to be the school for them too. And I think, why not start with the hard stuff first, and then the easier students should either be able to be served by the same policy or slightly adjusted policy. The Public Education Department has a very robust website, lots of different bureaus. The PEC's website is embedded in the PED's website. The Charter Schools Division also has a website on there. I'm always looking at the PEC's page of the website, and making sure that that's where I'm getting my information from, to make sure that it's the most up to date. Oh, I see I've got a chat. Stop sharing and see what the question is. Right. So, yeah. So let me see. Let me pull up that website. Escape. And my slideshow. And I will pull up. I just have it bookmarked on my site. I will put the link in the chat for everybody. This is a link to the New Mexico Compilation Commission. You go to OneSource, and it's the current New Mexico statutes annotated 1978 that you want to focus on, and the New Mexico Administrative Code. What other questions do you have for me today?
I don't have so much of a question as a comment, just based on the real world examples you gave from that rent rollout, the lease. It kind of seems like a balancing act from what I gather between, like, you can get a building that's more cost effective, but you might not get necessarily as high of a score, and therefore you might not get as much lease back. As much of the lease covered versus going after a building that has all the bells and whistles, which might be a little more expensive, but it might receive a higher score, and therefore you might get more of the lease covered.
Well, yes, and so Solare Collegiate, which I'll share this slide again. They built their own building, so they've got a very high, wait a second. Yeah, they've got a very good NMCI score. But they're getting the most return, but it's still not covering their costs. So there's other entities that promote and support charter schools. It's just a balance between finding the ones that don't come with charter management strings attached to them. So that's it's not easy.
Yeah, it's a balance. For
It's definitely
Solare,
not easy.
if they're doing a $540,000 lease, it's basically like a 10 or $11 million building, which, you know,
Yeah.
wouldn't start there, but maybe as a vertical one day.
Yeah, so everybody else was in an existing building. The building, the facility is going to be your biggest, absolutely your biggest hurdle. You know, a lot of schools in the Albuquerque area, and I don't know about other parts of the state, you know, might be finding charter schools in like a strip mall kind of situation or an old church. You have to take into consideration in those instances, if it's not already got, so one of the things you're going to all have to get is a certificate of e-occupancy, which means it is education ready to be, you know, occupied. And that can take time. Any construction that you're going to have to do to get a building up to snuff to get e-occupancy. When Solare, you know, they were brilliant. They were brilliant at not fundraising, but of grant writing and getting what they needed in place to build their facility. And then they got a letter from Albuquerque saying, you need to do a traffic study before you build. That in Albuquerque that year cost about $30,000. So, you know, if any of you are considering building, you have to think about that. If you're considering a building that isn't already used for educational purposes, that wherever you're located, they might say, you have to do a traffic study. Is this going to impact the community you're locating in, traffic flow? And you know, you need to find out how much that's going to set you back. So I wish that our application process was longer. I wish that we had started this in maybe September of 2025 and you had more time. I certainly wish that the peer review period was longer. And that we could, you know, in Arizona, you turn in your application, the peer reviewers look it over, they tell you what they like and what they don't like, and then you get a chance to rewrite the sections that they didn't like. And then the authorizer looks at it. You know, we don't have that either. It's practically a shotgun wedding. So it's a tough round. You've heard me say there's people who have, this is not their first time submitting or joining us. There's nobody in here who's actually submitted an application yet. It is not a failure if it takes you more than one go to do this. This is a heavy lift. There is so much to think about and there's so much to consider, and you've got so many different limiters. So, you know, you have a dream though, and you don't want to be discouraged. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to prepare you. But you know, it's not a failure if you start this process and don't actually feel like you're ready to do your application this year. And even if you do your application this year and the peer reviewers don't give you very good ratings, that's good feedback to take and then try again in another year. So please keep that in mind as well. Because it's not an easy thing, but educating kids is not an easy thing. Navigating, schools are expected to be so many things to the students and their families and their community. It's tough. It's hard. So well done, you guys, for trying, and best of luck. I will fix the errors that I found in my PowerPoint, and I'll get this sent out to you today. You'll have my email, and you can reach out to me with questions. The Charter Schools Division isn't going to give you a lot of help at this period of time. We can't step in to show you have capacity. You have to show that you have the capacity to do this. So I might not be as helpful as you would want me to be. I've had people in the past who in May were like, will you do my budget for me? Like, no, I couldn't do your budget for you, period. And I can't do your budget for you in your application. If you can't do the budget, then that's one of the capacity issues. Once you get approved and entered into the implementation year, we will be all up in your business and telling you what to do and what not to do, and helping you much more vigorously, because now you're an approved school and it's our job to help you to be successful. So that's the difference. We're friendly and supportive and try to guide you where we can through now, but then after you get approved in August, it really changes, and we're not just giving suggestions. They are still suggestions, but we're being specific. We need you to have this and this. So that's how that's going to work.
I have a question.
Yeah, Roddy.
We are planning to have a foundation to help us with budgeting and funding. Should we do that before we submit the application, or we can do that right now before?
I think you can, because I think the application does ask if you're going to have a foundation. Some in the past, some have already had their foundation before they've submitted their application. So I think you can absolutely. And the foundation really should be a way for money to flow from the foundation to the school. A lot of times it's flowing from the school to the foundation. But just be mindful in how you're setting it up. But the foundation the foundations are supposed to be set up for that entity to be the one that can incur debt, and they get the facility, and then you're paying them the lease. Be mindful of the fact that you will be audited every year. You will have to pay for your audit. And if you have a foundation, the foundation will have to be audited as well. So the audit will have to come for both entities out of your SEG. So, but it's a good thing to have a foundation. It's just an expensive thing. So,
And so I was wondering about how do you get that the deadlines if you want to build a new building, and how did they work that? So because the fact to get a used building or already structured building and get it to up to code is like building a new building. So I might as well make a new building. That's the easiest way with the city of Albuquerque codes and environmental thing, and to get it up to code. So how does that work? Because you need at least 6, 7 months between plans and submitting and getting acquiring land and all that. And it's a major thing. And how do you decide to do that? And that will be like, it needs at least between 6 to 7 months to build after even the 6 month of planning, which is a year. And where is that going to be fit on? And because you already have experience with the previous um, school, as you mentioned, they built their own thing. How did they do that, and how did that happened?
Well, they were not able to build it for the opening of their school. They did have to open up in a temporary location as the building was being built, but they did move into it before the end of their first charter. So, um, that founder of that school and the current head administrator is one of the most organized people I've ever met. She had already lined up. She had she had worked as a peer reviewer. She had served on a charter school board. She had grants that weren't the charter schools grant. I think she went with better better education schools or something like that. I can't remember the name of the entity. But of course, unfortunately, politics is involved in school, and the commissioners are all elected, so they're on different sides of the aisle. And so, some of them don't like, you know, funding from the the Walmart people, and they like funding from this organization. You know, so that's another layer that can be complicated of if you get grant money, is it, you know, gonna anger one side or the other? Um, Now that being said, you know, this I haven't seen a school that was denied because they didn't like the politics one way or the other, but just they could get grumbly. Um, so, so the way they did it, she had really like I said, she'd worked as a peer reviewer on applications. She I think she served as a board member, or at least you know attended board meetings and got a sense. Um, and she had this other grant money. She actually hired somebody to do recruiting in her implementation year. Because the other thing that I'll be showing you on a slide in a future thing is you're all going to say what you think you're going to get enrollment wise, and you're going to hire business managers or work with business manager entities that are going to say, you need 125 students to make your budget work. And no school since 2017 has achieved their enrollment goal. They've all been lower. One school said they were going to get 200 kids. They got money for 200 kids in July. They had 80 kids, and they didn't increase those numbers at all. And so the other thing that the public education department does is we have the 40th day, the 80th day, and the 120th day where we're looking at your enrollment and adjusting your budget accordingly. So that school had gotten money for 200 students in July, 200 students in August, 200 students in September, 200 students in October. Then the 40th day, which is in October, came around, and they had they had a decreased amount that they got in November, a decreased amount that they got in December, and then I think they didn't get any more money after that to make up for the 120 extra kids they were getting those other 3 months, 4 months. So it's very important to have enrollment, to have a realistic expectation of what that enrollment's going to be. And I would absolutely love if somebody would, and actually somebody has now finally broken that. A school here in Santa Fe met their enrollment goals when they opened. So that was good. Yeah, Lisa Marie. You're muted, so.
Sorry, I apologize. My button.
That's okay.
just
Hey, I've been having a hard time finding my cursor all day, so.
no. So based on what you were saying with the budget and everything, what is some other charter schools that they may have possibly under budgeted versus what we were just talking about now? So like other things that you have seen throughout the years that we should all be really focused on not under budgeting. So within our financial of what we're looking at.
Well, so it's a good question. You will have on day one, so say you are approved and you open up in the summer of 2027, you will have students with special needs. Your SEG hasn't really been, you're giving them a guesstimate. You're giving them a guesstimate and they will, and I will be going over in one of the trainings exactly how the SEG is meted out. So the 40th day is when all that adjustment happens, but you'll have to be able to provide special ed services, all of those services from day one. And so that's not just a first year, that's an every year. Like you can be existing for 10, 15 years with, maybe 2% of your population needs, like level D services of special ed students, which is the highest level. And then all of a sudden, your name's getting out there and you're getting good results for kids. And then other people want to join you. And all of a sudden you've got 4%. And, so that's doubled. And so you really being cognizant of your enrollment numbers and, having some money set aside to be able to pay for those services if you get increases. I personally think that it would be good for a board to ask a head administrator, or actually better to ask the business manager, how many students do we need to lose that's going to have to trigger me, the head administrator, to have a reduction in force? And how many students do we need to increase that I need to consider having either an EA or we can open up another classroom and I'm going to hire a new teacher. Like I feel like, and maybe Betty can speak to it, but I feel like a business manager should be able to tell you that type of if you gain 5 students, we're good, but if you gain 15, we should consider hiring an EA if the concentration is in one grade level. If you lose 10 students, we need to start talking a reduction in force. Nobody wants to do a reduction in force, but you can't let things, your board should be focused on making sure that you're making those adjustments in real time and quickly so that you're not running into the situation where you're going to be in the red or you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
So the legislature last year, and I'd been telling this in my training, when I used to do the board trainings, I was telling them this, the legislature keeps talking about changing the at-risk index. And instead of making it regional based on the district you're located on, they might decide to base it on your student population. And I'd say that's going to hurt some of your schools and it's going to help some of your schools. You should ask your business manager, is this going to help us or hurt us? I don't know if schools did that or not, but I do know that a lot of our charter schools are now currently having a budget deficit, and we might have another one. I've heard that the legislature might decide to lower the base rate of the state equalization guarantee this year. So that's going to mean a decrease in funds at all the schools and the charter schools division. So, and all the authorizers.
In my opinion, your business manager is more than, pardon me, is more than just a bookkeeper. Is more than somebody who does payroll and pays the bills. Your business manager has to have the pulse of your school at all times. They need to know all of the activity that's going on. They need to know your plans, what you want to do. They need to know at all times what your student population looks like, because that drives your funding. And if your business manager doesn't have all of that information, they cannot tell you, look, you need to do this or you need to do that. And there are schools out there that the communication between the business manager and all of the other entities of the school is nil, and they can't do their job. And they, like I said, they just need to know everything about your school so that they can do financial planning, look at long-term goals, short-term goals, so that they can keep your school financially sound.
Yeah, but they need to be reporting it out to the board, and the board needs to be providing oversight of them, right? There needs to be the finance committee, which is checking the work of the business manager and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so, yeah, we had a school with a business manager. So one of the things that your business manager does is submit requests for reimbursements from the public education department. You've spent money on this and you have to spend it, and then you get, if it's reimbursable, you can get a reimbursement. And one business manager one year just didn't submit those requests for reimbursements until the end of the fiscal year, when everybody's submitting stuff, and the school had to take out a $500,000 loan to make payroll because of that. You can't have a business manager that's not got their eye on the ball.
Yeah, I rescued a school at the end of the school year one year. I ended up in one day, I had to do reimbursements for them. I went in, they called me and said, we need help. $950,000 that they almost lost because their business manager didn't do reimbursements. And that money was unrecoverable if they hadn't have called me and said, we need help. So, that's one of the things you have to do, is make sure your business manager is doing their job.
Right. And it's the board's job, not the head administrator's job, to be making sure of that. I mean, that's one of the key fundamental, like, most head administrators did not go into all of this because of their deep appreciation for sub-governmental fiscal understanding. They went in because they want to improve outcomes for kids. So the board's job then, in my opinion, is really to be focused like hawks on the money, to make sure that the head administrator has the resources they need to provide the educational program that they want. So, and we'll talk more. You'll get sick of hearing me talk about stuff.
Yeah. And the audit committee, they need to deep dive into your audit to make sure that everything is going smoothly. You get findings, that they're cleared, that your business manager has the capability of doing all of this.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. You guys had good questions. And I did want to say that I will be reaching out to all of you to set up little one-on-ones to go over. So a couple of years ago, we had some issues with notices of intent that were inaccurate, and then when they submitted the application, they were deemed to be an invalid application. So ever since then, me and my team, we've been doing just a review, and so we'll meet with you and we'll go over, so, everybody's fine on their NOI. You don't have to sweat bullets or anything like that. But we just go through with each applicant team by them, just us and you, not in this big group, and give you some feedback on the things in your application or your notice of intent. So I will be reaching out to set those up with you. It's something I would like to get done before the end of February. But it's, if we're all running out of time and things like that, I'll just send it to you and you can review it and we can talk about it if you have questions. But you'll be expecting that from me. You guys can reach out to me as you need, and I will once I know. I've already sent you all the meeting invitations. Once I know which one the Public Charter Schools of New Mexico wants to come and do their CSP grant application spiel, I will be sending out an update through the meeting invitation to let you know that that's the one they're going to come to. And so if there's other partners that are specifically going to be tasked with applying for that grant that you want to attend, you'll make sure that they get that invitation then. So, all right. I love that Murad's at the Coliseum there. That's so cool. All right, everybody. If nobody has any other questions, we can finish up today and
when is the next one? That was February.
February
23rd, I think you said, actually.
I think so.
Yeah, it's the 23rd. It's February 23rd.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool.
Yeah, this is my season of, so I'm still doing a monthly implementation year trainings with the schools that were approved last year. And now I'm adding you guys in. Fortunately, I don't have to do renewal application schools this year. So 'cause that's always, every year I'd be like, start talking and people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, that's renewal stuff, not new stuff. Or I'd be talking about new stuff to the renewal schools. So it gets confusing. But it's just you guys and the implementation year schools on our docket. So we can focus more on your questions and such. So, all right. And if you guys do, if you email me, so say Lisa Marie emails me a really just banging question, I will respond to her and include the rest of you so that you get to see, because if I feel it's like important and you guys should all know it. If it's, just like something between us, I'm not going to do that. But if I feel like it's something that, everybody should hear the response on, I'm going to do that. So everybody gets the benefit. All right. All right, well, I'll stay on, but you guys can leave in case anybody wants to sneakily stay on and ask me a question. But I'm going to stop the recording.
Is there a way you can share that their experience of building that, and so we don't have that mistakes? Like,
I'd suggest you could reach out to Solari Collegiate's head administrator and ask if she would be willing to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Because I don't really know what she did.